Welcome back to another episode of Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. As always, I'm your host, Dean Simon. And before we get into everything, please make sure to leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe. We are still on the road to 2,000 subs, so if that's a journey you feel compelled to join, please consider doing so and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future Milwaukee Bucks updates. All right, so might look like I'm crying in this angle right now. I don't know if you could see the redness in my eye, but something just flew in my eye before recording and it nearly killed me. So that was a little bit of a interruption, but we're back, we're okay. But the Milwaukee Bucks are not back, especially with the continued absence of Giannis Antetokounmpo, dropping another game yet again to the red hot, continuing their win streak now. After this one, it's 12 wins in a row for the Detroit Pistons. They win 129-116. Cade Cunningham could not be stopped. Jalen Duren could not be stopped. And those are just a few of the points of contention with this game that we'll get into. But overall, the Milwaukee Bucks, it really stuns me continuously that my main point of contention with each loss of the previous, what is it now, three in a row, is that when you shoot 46.5% on 43 threes, you should never, unless it's some kind of crazy thing that happens where you pile up 20 plus turnovers, or the transition point differential or rebounding differential is such an astronomical difference that, it could cause a team like the Pistons, who take advantage of a lot of mistakes of opposing teams, that, they could come away with a win. But as an NBA team, when you shoot, I'll round up 47% and knock down 23s in an NBA game, you should be near impossible to beat. Combining with that, if your splits for the game as a team against any team in the NBA are 51, 47, 83, you should rarely ever lose that game. But leave it to the Milwaukee Bucks to not only lose this game, but lose it by double digits and be down essentially 30 by, halftime and through the beginning stages of the third quarter. Leave it to the Milwaukee Bucks to do so. Of course, we got another great Bobby Portis game, 18 points, very efficient, 7 of 10 from the field. Ryan Rollins imposed his will again, as he's really been the only guy with Giannis out, other than the kind of semblance of good drives to the basket by Cole Anthony, though we did get basically another non-existent Cole Anthony performance in this one with 4 points, 2 assists, 5 turnovers, 2 of 5 from the field in 14 minutes. But somehow he actually was a plus 10 for the game. AJ Green hit 5 of his 10 threes, as he's just bound to do every single game. And Bobby Portis hit 4 of his 5 threes. And most of those were kind of just, off the catch, like just random pull up threes, as, he's prone to do as well. But they went down. Ryan Rollins had, what did he have? 24, another 24 and 7 assists in this one. And low turnovers again for him, as that's a big thing with him that I've really loved, is that for all of the attention and pressure and responsibility that's been thrust upon him, he's been a very high assist, low turnover guy. But it just sucks that the turnovers that he did have were very, very hard to watch. That it was just him getting stripped by Asar Thompson or Ron Holland or whatever, and it just kind of made him look like he was less of a ball handler than we know him to be. Of course, in the second half, he got things going from an offensive perspective, but overall, just a very embarrassing performance from this team. Despite, again, when you shoot 51, 47, 83, you should rarely ever lose that game. But again, leave it to the Bucks, because they got beat on the boards. What is it? 35 to, no, they actually won the rebounding battle 35 to 32. They lost the assist battle by only 2, and the turnovers, they only had, oh my gosh. Wow. 15 turnovers to 14 for the Detroit Pistons, and they were down by 30 in this game. In a game where you allow the Detroit Pistons, who were just hot from the get-go. Of course, Cade Cunningham finished with another relatively simple 29, 10, and 8. Jalen Duren just completely took Miles Turner to town. What did he finish with? 19 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, and he was just at 7 for 10 shooting. He was just amazing. Isaiah Stewart came in and made an impact on both ends, 7 points and 2 boards, 3 or 4 from the field. Tobias Harris was feasting on whether it was Kyle Kuzma or even Ryan Rollins in certain instances, and Bobby Portis. It seemed as though Tobias Harris, actually, he did a fair amount of his work off the ball too, and kind of just made guys like Bobby and Kyle just kind of look stupid in on the perimeter, kind of like defending an open space. And I feel like that's something that we were kind of shown once again in, in excruciating detail, is that Bobby Portis just cannot hang on the perimeter with seemingly anybody. He's just getting duped by these easy backdoor cuts from Tobias Harris, and he just cannot defend in space in an off-ball kind of role. And that just became clear throughout the night. Duncan Robinson hit 5 of his 6 threes for an easy 15 points. Jaden Ivey only shot 6 shots, but hit 4 of them. Dennis Jenkins, who's been on an absolute tear, finished with 7 points, 3 assists, and hit all 3 of his shots. Javonte Green hit all 3 of his shots. The only way that the Bucks could lose a game like this, where they shoot 51, 47, 83, is when they allow the Pistons on less shot attempts. The Pistons only shot 78 shots to end with 129 points on 78 shots. They shot a shade under 63% from the field for the entire game. 53% on threes. And they missed 9 of their 24 free throws. They shot 62% from the free throw line, but it didn't matter. They shot 49 of 78 from the floor. They were getting anything they wanted. Neither Kyle Kuzma, again, or Bobby Portis could hang with the likes of Cade Cunningham or Tobias Harris anywhere on the perimeter, in the mid post, or anything. There was just no form of resistance at all. And before I finally move on to the next slide, Miles Turner specifically, we need to see some more defensive impact. Of course, he's never been lauded as like this amazing one-on-one defender in the post. Like, that's not really his main specification or role. But the fact that he could not contain Jalen Duren in any stretch of the imagination, Jalen Duren was backing him down easy, shooting hook shots over him, spinning off him for and one finishes in just easy one-on-one matchups like it was nothing. He made Miles Turner look like less of a shot blocker than he is, similar to how who did I say before? Asar Thompson made Ryan Rollins look as less impressive of a ball handler as he actually is. Jalen Duren made Miles Turner look like he's not a 2-time block champion, and that he doesn't actually affect paint defense as well as he does. Just absolutely feasted on Miles, and these things just have to stop. But one thing that needs to definitely stop, as I've been saying ad nauseum the past couple episodes, is that the Milwaukee Bucks have to shoot more 3-pointers. There's just no workaround for it. There's no excuse for them not to, even though they shot 43 threes tonight, which is a step up, but definitely a step in the right direction. Get it to 50, just get it to 55, 60, because the Bucks obviously have the shooting talent to knock down 30 threes in an NBA game, which would be setting a record or tying a record for like the most in a game, or maybe it's 31. I'm not sure at the time. But they knocked down 23s relatively simply in this game and shot 47% from 3. If they up to those attempts by another 10, maybe this is a different game. And of course, maybe not through the first half, but as the Bucks were starting to make more of a push and grab more momentum towards the second half, it could have been a different game. The fact that the Bucks shot more shots than the Milwaukee Bucks, than the Detroit Pistons. They shot 84 attempts from the field to the Pistons 78, but the Pistons made 6 more shots. You just got to equal that kind of stuff out with more threes being attempted. And some might say that that's maybe asking a little bit too much, and maybe they would be taking threes that are unnecessary, that might be a little bit too contested. That doesn't matter. These guys on this team are skilled enough that they can make threes with a hand in the face. This is a natural occurrence for guys like AJ Green and Gary Trent Jr., though he's been relatively non-existent through the last portion of the season. But these guys can make contested threes, shoot more threes, take advantage of you having, or your team having, arguably the best 3-point personnel in the entire NBA, flat out. Take advantage of it. Doc Rivers, tell your basketball team to shoot more 3-pointers, regardless of how it may look, because it's getting ridiculous to this point. This team should be averaging 45 threes attempted a game, and I don't think that's a crazy ask. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility by any stretch of the imagination. Moving forward, the Sacramento Kings are imploding right before our eyes, even though they picked up an insane win against the Denver Nuggets in Denver, led by Russell Westbrook. They are just completely imploding, and they're probably set for a rebuild, and that fire sale is going to likely be coming soon with guys like Domantas Sabonis and Keon Ellis and a lot of other guys like Malik Monk too, even the Dennis Schroeders of the world. Basically, there was a report that came out from, I think it was Bleacher Report, that everybody on the team outside of Keegan Murray and Neek Clifford, I believe, will be available for the Sacramento Kings come the trade deadline. And if the Kings are really going to be executing this fire sale, Domantas Sabonis might not be a bad area or avenue to go down in terms of, just trying to see where trade negotiations may lead. Of course, they probably wouldn't get rid of Miles Turner to make this kind of thing happen. And if so, that would be a ridiculous turn of events. But that probably wouldn't happen. So maybe all of this is kind of a moot point. But getting Domantas Sabonis on this basketball team would be pretty phenomenal, just because it has been the rebounding throughout the entirety of this year. The Bucks are the worst rebounding team in the NBA, and the worst, or one of the worst, at allowing their opponents to grab offensive rebounds, and then that leads to second chance points. Domantas Sabonis could just nullify all of that, because he's been the best rebounder in the league for the past 3-4 years running, 3-time rebounding champ, or is it 2-time rebounding champ, and he's going for his third? I think he's going for his fourth rebounding title this year consecutively. But um, anyways, Domantas Sabonis, one of the best not only rebounders in the league, but also one of the best playmaking bigs, other than Nikola Jokic, and now I guess Alperen Şengün can also be argued as the second best playmaking center in the NBA, or maybe third behind Sabonis. But regardless, Sabonis's skill set could mesh perfectly with this team and alongside Giannis. Maybe he doesn't offer the same kind of rim protection that Miles Turner does, but then again, Miles Turner's rim protection this season hasn't been up to snuff with with the past decade of his play while he's been with the Indiana Pacers. Definitely not 2-time block champion levels of rim protection. So maybe you sacrifice that a little bit to try and go and get a guy like Sabonis that can help you in all of these different kinds of areas. Where he would specifically help is on the rebounding, not allowing other teams to grab offensive boards. And he also, because he's an underrated ball handler for his position and for his size, and a fantastic passer, he could help this team even more with subscribing to a completely transition based attack where they're grabbing the rebound and they're going, because he's a guy alongside Giannis. If either of them come down with the rebound, you trust either of them to just get out and push on the break, and kind of assess their options and kind of see how plays develop. And you trust both of those guys to kind of be the quarterbacks, even though they're the two front court starters, or they would be the hypothetical front court duo. You trust both of them as the quarterbacks of your offense. So I feel like getting Sabonis for, I don't want to say he'd be available for pennies on the dollar, because obviously you would have to make up a lot of salary. A guy like Kyle Kuzma, who has been having a pretty outstanding season with all things considered, to begin this thing, his salary would have to be included, alongside, probably Miles or Bobby Portis or someone like that to make this kind of deal happen. But you can't really convince me at the moment that it's not worth it, or that it's not worth thinking about, I think is my main point. Um, but yeah, so Domantas Sabonis trade stuff could be coming up in the future. I don't know how realistic that idea might be, but at this point for the Bucks, with Giannis out, they're flailing during the biggest stretch of their season, and to date, and it might be worth it to at least negotiate and see where those kinds of conversations can lead. But anyways, like I said before, this is the biggest stretch of the Bucks season to this point, about 17 games in, and it does not get any easier, because after this game against the Pistons, who continue their win streak, they're still on top of the East. Now the Bucks will face the Portland Trailblazers, who are an incredibly underrated, incredibly defensively sound young team, and they're just so athletic, and overall they just have so many different key guys and with key skill sets in different positions, like Tumani Kamara, who has come out of nowhere to be an all defensive first team caliber guy. Jeremy Grant is starting to kind of find himself a little bit more. Shaden Sharp is bursting out into one of their top scorers, and we can't, not even mentioning Denny Avdia, who's bursting out into an all NBA first or second team caliber level. And that's to go along with Donovan Clingan, who's proven to be an absolute force down low, because he's way too big and strong and tall. There's just really nothing you could do about him. This game against the Blazers will be tough, and it will be the Bucks' chance to bounce back and try and find some semblance of a rhythm. But again, against a incredibly disruptive team in the Trailblazers, it's going to be very difficult. But it's another matchup that I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing if Ryan Rollins, like the combination maybe of Ryan Rollins and Cole Anthony, can kind of speed up the Trailblazers. And then if one of those guys makes a good swing pass, and they could get the Blazers into, rotations, and then they have to kind of rely on finding their guys in a relatively quick manner. And maybe through the confusion, the Bucks can get up a couple more threes and have a couple fall at a higher rate. But another game that I'm looking forward to, and after the Blazers, is not going to get any easier, because I believe consecutively either it's going to be the Heat next or the Knicks after that, or the Knicks next and the Heat. So another two fantastic Eastern Conference foes to be going against after a up and coming Blazers team. So it's not going to get any easier, but hopefully good things are ahead. Thank you guys very much for tuning into another episode of Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. Once again, I'm your host, Dean Simon. And before you guys leave a like, leave that comment, and subscribe, turn on post notifications, and I will see you guys in the next one. Go Bucks.